this place has not been any problem. It's not been problematic to the Wrigley District empty. And I know it going to the Planning Commission meetings that the big concern was that any business is better than an empty business. And I do not believe that's the case. The same owner has owned a check cashing business right down the street on Magnolia and PCH, which the RDA raised to the ground, and we now have an empty lot, which is much better for the community than that business was. So an empty lot can be better than a blighted business or this kind of predatory loan, absolutely. Furthermore, you can get this kind of, if you need a loan like this, you can get it on the internet. Why take up land use with this kind of business when you can go right to the internet and get this kind of loan? This property on 201 PCH is very precious to the area here, the Wrigley residents. They've been working very hard with the RDA. The RDA is gone. All of a sudden, no more funds coming to the landowner. They're going down a route which we had hoped to not go down. We want a business that has some kind of brand or something to give to the community or the commuters. And keep in mind, this is PCH. Commuters from both up north and southbound come through the city, and the businesses that are on this fairway are what is the face of Long Beach, actually. And I think we can do a lot better than what we're proposing tonight. Please support the original proposal, and do not let the pipeline interfere with what we're trying to do here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Mona Eigner. My address is on record. I'm actually one of the appellants for 2004 Examino, and this whole thing has been a new experience for me. I usually hear about trees, and I'm really disappointed in the experience that I've been going through since April. We've been dealing with this, and it's just been really difficult, and we've lost a lot of sleep, and we write a presentation, and we think that things are going in our direction, and then I just don't understand how come we're rushing through this. Why is it that we can't wait another year or whatever the moratorium takes to hear what the Planning Commission comes up for zoning ordinances to protect the neighborhood? Maybe these businesses will get in because they fit within the ordinance, whatever the ordinance becomes. Why is it that we have to rush through this? I don't really understand it. I just don't understand it. This has been a really I've learned a lot in this process, and I'm not real happy with it. And I don't have much more to say, but I support the original motion, and I think that you guys should support that too. I think there's no rush, and they have a lot of money that they've been working with, and I think that they can wait a little while. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, council members, mayor, city staff. I'll be real brief in that I just want to make it clear that I think that the officials here have a responsibility to the community to look into this matter a great deal, whereas it's been mentioned that this is not just a local issue and that it's a state issue. Well, I guess you can look at it as you do with the predatory lending people. It's just a travesty that we don't look into the matter more carefully before and present it to the community to ensure that they understand the pros and cons of everything before things come to their community, especially when you have active working individuals in the community that are concerned with their community. We've tried as community members and residents to work with the council members of the city to give information and support the things that come to the community. And I think that the moratorium is, although I dislike spending money on studies, I think that it's important and that we have a moral obligation to the community to educate the people that aren't aware of just how the fees can land them in a worse position than what they were. So I hope that you reconsider, and I thank Shepsky for her motion, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Al Shmigelski. I live on Main Avenue in the Wrigley area, and I would like to urge the Council to include in the moratorium all the applications for conditional use permits. And I would like to leave you with a paraphrase of an Arabic saying, once you have the camel's nose under your tent, you'll have a camel in your bed that night. Thank you.
Next, please. Are there any additional public comment after this? Need to know. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Mendoza. I'm attached to the property at 201 West PCH. I'm not here to represent the business. Just as the property owner, we've had a vacancy for 6 years. So it's been empty. We've had various people trying to offer tenancy, but we didn't want to take in a 99-cent store. I think we have plenty of those. I didn't want to take in another indoor swap meet. I think we have plenty of those. Prepaid phone cards. So we do have a future development in mind. Now we're doing it on our own, and it's going to take time to be able to gather all of our resources. As a landlord, I would never have a tenant sign a contract without having them go down to the city first and ask for permission to see if it was okay, if it was possible for zoning. Once that was approved, then we would put together a contract. So as you know, during this time, it's been empty, so it's been not so easy for us to attain a loan for our future development. Again, my position is strictly for the property. So if you could please try to understand that, we would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, please.
Dave Gallion, 2004 Examino, against the moratorium. The potential moratorium, if it actually does get approved tonight, I think should have a few considerations to it. Yes, I am with Dollar Loan Center. We filed our CUP on March 28th of this year. We're now into its 6 months. On September 28th, I stood in front of the, not September 28th, sorry. 2 weeks ago, I stood in front of the council in regards to our CUP after having a unanimous decision by planning to approve us. Staff approved us. At that time, we were told that it would be 45 days before we'd be back in front of council as you considered what planning would come up with. As we were doing some research, we found that now there was a new moratorium that was trying to be put in place only 14 days after we were told it was going to be 45 days. As we're looking at this, I want you to consider the differences between some of our businesses. Dollar Loan Center operates under the CFLL. We're a consumer finance lender. We operate the same as a mortgage company who's licensed under the same. We are no different than a standard loan given by a bank. We just do a lower amount. You don't have to have a checking account with us. The payday lenders that you're discussing this evening operate under a completely different license with the state. It's CDDTL. It's the California Deferred Deposit Transactions. It is actually considered the payday lender's law with the state of California. This is why I always try to make the point that we are different than the payday lenders. Hopefully with that said, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but it just really take into consideration the difference in how the state classifies us and when we come in. I appreciate what Councilmember O'Donnell had to say, and I am for his motion, if that's the direction we need to go this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I just ask him a quick question?
Sure.
Could you talk about the investment you've made in this operation?
Yes. When we talk about the $200,000, it's when we filed our CUP, our representative made it clear that we need to actually have a signed lease before we did that. Part of that money is the lease that we signed with the complex. So then from there we went in, did our small tenant improvements. Luckily it was a very nice suite. We put new carpet in, new tile, we installed our security system. We paid for our signage that obviously has not yet been able to be hung. We had our furniture build outs. We got everything ready after being told that all we needed to do was file for our CUP. We go through the process, a 6 to 8 week process, and again, now we're here 6 months later, still in the process to try to open up our business. After being really brought in, saying, hey, not a problem, this is the process in Long Beach, And now we feel like we're being pushed out without any recourse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Hello, my name is Katie Noel with Equity One. I addressed the council last week, so I'm going to be brief, but
Just can you explain what Equity One is?
I'm
Because
sorry.
you're not a lender.
no, I'm sorry. Equity One is the owner of the shopping center in which Dollar Loan has submitted their application for. And as the other landlord stated, current economic conditions have made it very difficult to lease spaces these days. Gone are the days when, people are looking to start their own businesses and vacancies were leased up overnight. Now they sit for years. And having vacancy in the center is detrimental to the center, not only to us as operators, but it's detrimental to the existing tenants in the center. So having it just sit vacant, it also attracts graffiti and vagrancy because no one occupies that space. If Dollar Loan does not receive their permit due to this moratorium, both the tenant and Equity One will have incurred expenses, legal expenses, time, as well as lost opportunities to fill the space. If this moratorium is passed without the grandfathering, it begs the question, what happens with the next tenant that we lease to that is allowed under zoning and faces opposition? We will have no surety that we can conduct business as property owners in this city. I'd ask the City Council to adopt, if they do adopt this moratorium, that the applicant be grandfathered in as considered tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's take it behind the rail quickly. DeLong, Mr. DeLong.
Thank you. So I want to make sure I understand the substitute motion, Mr. Mays. So basically, it just gives these three businesses that are in the pipeline the opportunity to come to the City Council for a decision. And the council could, for example, allow one to go through, but then make a finding that not to support the other two. Is that correct?
That's correct. Two for sure will come. If the third one is not appealed to the City Council from the Planning Commission, it would not come. But if it was appealed, all three would come.
But I just want to be clear that we're not approving any of these uses tonight. We're just giving them an opportunity to come to the City Council for approval.
You're giving them a due process right to complete the process, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Garcia.
Actually, Councilman DeLong said what I was going to say. I think the due process is correct, and just, again, to remind us, we can reject all three of them. And I think that's something that we should have a discussion about.
We already have had the discussion. Councilmember Shipsky, and we're going to go to a vote.
Sure. I just think that we had some residents who I think summed it up. I don't quite know what we're doing since the reason we have this on the agenda. By the way, at the urging of Mr. Austin, Mr. Neal, and Mr. Garcia, that I put this item on the agenda, and it was based on what we had at the last council meeting regarding the issue of moratorium. When we had a moratorium on cell phone towers, we did not allow anybody, even in the pipeline, to continue until that moratorium was completed. The same thing has happened on the billboard ordinance moratorium. I'm confounded that we would sit here and ask how much money a Las Vegas, Nevada company has put into this property when in fact they were not promised that they would have it. I would suggest, Mr. O'Donnell, that you ask 4th District residents and Wrigley people how much they have invested in their community and why there is a need for us as a community to sit and look at this issue before we allow this to go forward. So I understand where the vote is going, and I think it's unfortunate for the city of Long Beach.
Mr. O'Donnell, then we're going to a vote.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make it very clear that I did hold a community meeting on this matter, Ms. Shipsky, which I thought was appropriate. And what came out was, some support for this. Okay. And understand, you have one in your district.
I do not.
And we've clarified that.
Hold on. We've already had that discussion. It's enough. All right, we have a motion and a second on a substitute motion. I think all of you know it, with an exemption as described by Mr. Mays. On that motion, cast your votes.
Motion carries. 8 votes yes with 1 abstention.
No, it wasn't abstention.
No, you can't. All right. Okay. All right.
That's a no.
That motion passes.
I'll reset the vote displayed?
It's a no vote. It's a no
It's a no
vote.
vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you all who participated, appreciate it. We'll go on, we're gonna take item 15 up. We have actually two people that need to leave a little earlier, so, and they wanted to be here for item 15. Item 15, clerk will read.
Item 15 is a report from the Office of Councilmember Al Austin and Councilmember Stephen Neal with a recommendation to, in order to maintain the highest ethical standards and integrity for the Harbor Commission, request an independent investigation into the recent accusations made by Commissioner Doug Drummond against fellow commissioners and current and former city employees, and report back to the City Council.
Okay, Mr. Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, the Port of Long Beach is the largest economic engine for the region. More than $155 billion worth of cargo moved through the Port of Long Beach last year. Nearly $5 billion in local, state, and federal taxes are generated each year from port-related trade. 30,000 jobs, about 1/8 of the workforce in Long Beach, is related to the Port of Long Beach generated trade. The success of the port is tied to the strong reputation and integrity that port leadership has developed with our trading partners throughout the Pacific Rim. When the reputation, integrity of the port's leadership is called into question, especially by one of our own harbor commissioners, that threatens to undermine the years and years of outstanding work that our port has undertaken to solidify its long-respected leadership position in the international trade community. The integrity and ethical standards of harbor commissioners and all commissioners and its deliberate process is of the utmost importance. The allegations that were most vastly publicized after business had been conducted in a closed session meeting at the Port of Long Beach doesn't mean that these charges should be overlooked or swept under the rug. I think it's important that we hear from the public tonight. These charges have already had an impact, I believe, on the maritime community and other stakeholders. The Press Telegram had an editorial today. It says, quote, Drummond says that he's already apologized to Mr. Fields, but it isn't enough. Fields, Harbor Commissioner Nick Schrammick, and former Executive Director Dick Steinke should have the opportunity to clear their names in an open and transparent manner. The editorial goes on to say that the investigation must not only be approved by the City Council, but also be moved swiftly through the appropriate channels so that the port can get back to the business of processing cargo while continuing its search for a new home. Why should the City Council be involved with this? Well, Section 510 of the City Charter allows our mayor to remove any member of the Charter mandated commission at any time with the concurrence of 2/3 of the members of a City Council. In addition, these allegations were leveled against a former city manager, current city employees, and involved charges of improper influence involving the port's new headquarters, an issue which the mayor and City Council requested to come back before council approval by amending the Harbor's budget department, their budget resolution just 2 weeks ago. I can tell you that I contemplated long and hard before moving forward to agendize this item. For the most part, the City of Long Beach has been a shining example of good and ethical government. When allegations of corruption, of collusion, and backroom deal making are brought to the light from any entity of the city, I think we have an obligation as a City Council to take a very serious look into it. And for the record, I just want to state that I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't know enough about the specifics to have an opinion about where the new home for the Port of Long Beach will and should be. My primary concern is that we get to the truth. We evaluate the organizational dynamics of the commission, the fitness of our commissioners, and make adjustments if necessary to restore the spirit and respect and collegiality among commissioners at the Port of Long Beach. With that, I would make the motion that in order to maintain the highest ethical standards and integrity for the Harbor Commission, we request an investigation into the recent accusations made by Commissioner Doug Drummond against his fellow commissioners, current and former city employees, and report back to the council.
Mr. Shannon, I believe you have some comments on this. I know that when this took place, it was referred to you immediately. I think you've looked into the matter, and I think you have some comments about the process tonight.
Yes, Mayor. Council members, you have before you a memorandum from myself relating to this item. And in my memorandum, I refer to public discussion, and I want to be clear.